You are listening to the 90 Days Later podcast with Anna Charles, episode 107. Welcome to the 90 Days Later podcast, where I show you how life with less alcohol is more fun than you think. I work with high achievers who struggle to drink a glass of wine without it turning into 2 bottles. I'm the one they call when they want to take it or leave it. So if you want to change your relationship with alcohol that doesn't involve counting days sober, you're in the right place. Hello all and welcome back to the podcast. All right, so we are on the absolute cusp of the holiday season. If you are listening to this episode on the day of release, Tuesday the 19th of December, I encourage you to come to a webinar, masterclass I'm co-hosting with an expert on nutrition with Verona. And what we're going to be talking about is how to not overdo things this festive season, right? So I've teamed up with Verona, and as I say, she's an expert on nutrition and weight loss, to show you how to have a fantastic festive season without all the overeating and all the over drinking. So make sure you're signed up for that. You can do that if you go to 90dayslater.co/holidays. It's that easy. And yes, we are going to record the session, and we will make the recording available for a limited time to people who have registered. But you need to register in order to get the recording. So even if you can't make the live session, you're going to want to hear the recording. So 90dayslater.co/holidays. Second mini announcement I want to make is I am going to be making quite a big change to the podcast in the new year, in 2024. So it's too early to give details for that yet, but just to give you a heads up, that's what I'm doing. And actually the change I'm making is going to make it easier for all of you lovely people to interact with me. And so I'm very excited about that. So that's coming later in January. All right, so now to the meat of today's topic, which is drink less this holiday. I'm going to keep this really simple, right? And I'm going to give you 6 ways to drink less over the holidays. The first way to drink less this holiday is to decide what you want, right? One of the main reasons why it's hard to change your drinking is because over time, we get kind of worn down, right? We try taking breaks here and there before we get right back to it. And even when we are drinking less, or maybe we're going sober for a bit and we're counting the days and it's all miserable, we know we're going to go straight back to it. We just know we are. And we then lose trust in ourselves. So the first thing I want you to do is decide what you want for yourself this holiday season, this festive season. If you're going to drink, I want you to put your hand up to yourself and say, I'm going to drink. I just am. But I want you to see that even if you do decide you're going to drink, by deciding it, right, by having some sort of thought around it, you're going to be doing it with more intention. This is not you saying, I really hope, I would really hope I'm not going to drink, but I know I'm going to. No, you're going to be deciding, and you can decide in a doable way. You do not have to go for total perfection, but you're deciding, you're not hoping. As an ex-boss of mine once said, hope is not a strategy. So that's the first thing I want you to decide. I want you to decide one way or the other. Because what's worse than over-drinking is the way we talk to ourselves afterwards, right? The berating, and that leads to then all the restriction that doesn't last, right? When we kind of are pretending that we're not going to drink, even though we know we will. So we want to just stop doing that. We're just going to decide. And if we're going to drink, we're going to decide how much we're going to drink. Second point is I want you to look at how is this season a holiday for you. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, I want you to do an inventory of what's involved and what's on your plate. What are you saying yes to, and where can you say no? And what I mean by this is, where are you agreeing to do all the cooking, all the wrapping of all the presents, all the arrangements to get the family to the friends and all the rest of it, right? Overwhelm is one of the main reasons at this time of year that we find ourselves reaching for the sherry. Our primitive brains are just going to go for comfort and relief. That's what they want. And if we're feeling overwhelmed and stressed, even if it's good stuff, like we say, I should be, this is fun. It's fun to be making out all these meal plans and these recipe plans and things. But if that stops being fun and it starts feeling really stressed, then drinking is the way we've taught ourselves to relax, right? This is no different to drinking in response to stress at our jobs. So I want you to think about, how is this a holiday and how is it not a holiday? And what are the things you just decide, I'm just going to say no to? Because if I say no to those things, I won't feel so overwhelmed. And if I don't feel so overwhelmed, I will not be over drinking. Related to that, point 3, I want you to prioritize self-care. Take regular exercise, even if it's just a quick walk. I want you to stay hydrated. I want you to have good sleep routines. And above all else, have some time to yourself, especially if you get stressed out by having all the family around. And again, related to the other point, if you are kind of like the go-to person in the household who does all the admin and gets all the organization done, take yourself off. Give yourself some time away. Give yourself permission for that. Above all else, do not save up your relaxation for the end of the day, because you know what that means. It means a drink. So give yourself permission to treat yourself and put yourself first. And it doesn't have to mean fancy spa routines and things like that. Just go and sit quietly in an empty room for 5 minutes and have a cup of tea. The 4th point I have for you today is I want you to, if you're going to, this works for especially if you're going to parties, I want you to visualize the event in advance. This will enable you, if you're going to a party, you've got lots of people drinking around you, to stick to what you've decided for yourself. So how you do this is I want you to visualize yourself in that social situation. I want you to picture yourself in that setting, not drinking or drinking what you've planned, right? So that's how we see ourselves. And I want you to visualize feeling what you might feel like as you're being successful at doing that thing. Right? I want you to visualize yourself having a great time, engaging with other people, talking openly, laughing, and having fun without over drinking. I really want you to see it and feel it. Because here's what we do. We're really good at visualizing not doing that, right? Not having the fun. And worst case scenarioing. Got the word out, right? That's what we do. We're really good at that. Our automatic brain's like, oh, this is going to be so hard. I'm going to overdrink. It's going to be so miserable, right? We see ourselves as the weirdo not having fun when everybody else is laughing raucously around us. So if you're all worked up and worried that an event is going to be a disaster, that's probably what's going to happen for you, unless you can consciously decide to picture success and practice that as much as possible. And again, you can do that before you step foot out of your own home. It's directing your brain to look at success. It can help to write this out. Write the story out that you would like to see happen. Share it with somebody. You can email yours to me, anna@90dayslater.co, right? Just so you could feel you've shared it with someone. Practice thinking you're going to have fun without overdoing it. And that's the way to start getting your brain to realize that that is possible for you. And here's another one for a holiday events, party, festive events, is to have an exit strategy. I want you to decide how long you want to stay at a particular social situation. And I want to make sure that you know when you want to leave. And I want you to make sure you know these things ahead of time. Do not leave this to chance. Well, I don't know how long I want to be there. No, decide ahead of time. Have your own back as to what you want to experience. So if you're not drinking and you're going to an event where there's going to be lots of alcohol and it's really going to be a party, I'm guessing you might not want to stay until after midnight, for instance. You might want to stay there for hours and hours. For me, in my experience, here's what I did. I would go to the party early and I'd leave after something like 90 minutes. Went in, I was sociable, I talked, I was very uncomfortable, especially when I was not drinking to start, the very early days, but I worked through that and I didn't drink and then I left, right? So I still went to the party, wasn't teaching myself I have to be this hermit at home. You do not. That is not a good strategy. But go and know when you're going to leave. That's what I did. And then the next time I could stay a little longer and I kind of built up on that. But don't go into the event with unrealistic expectations, right? I'm going to stay all night long. I'm going to be hanging out. I'm going to be super happy around all these other people who are still getting drunk after several hours of drinking. And when they're not making sense anymore and they're annoying me. No, you don't want to do that to yourself. You want to set yourself up for success, to have an exit strategy, figure out how you're going to get home and plan that ahead of time. And even if this means, for instance, booking a separate taxi to your spouse, then so be it. So much of this work is around taking back control for yourself. Ask what serves you best and then follow that. And then my final and sixth point here is to redefine fun. What do I mean by that? Well, I always say that life with less or no alcohol is a lot more fun than you think. And I'm genuine in that. I genuinely believe that. But I know it can be a stretch, especially to start with. I can imagine past Anna, right? A few years back, rolling her eyes at this. I like a good eye roll, like the next person. No way in those early days could I have got to the point where it's more fun, right? It's more fun to not drink. I was solidly of the opinion that it's more boring without wine or champagne. I mean, Christmas and no champagne. I mean, I may have told you the story before on a podcast where we used to go out to Christmas lunch with some good friends. In fact, we're doing it again this year. And this one year we had finished lunch, we had paid. I had my coat on, my friend and I. We had our coats on, we're just waiting for our husbands and children to get their acts together. And we're sitting there by the front door of the hotel in our coats, full coats, full, really wrapped up warm, ready to go. And the maitre d' says, would you like a glass of champagne? And we looked at each other and said, okay, yeah, that sounds fun. We then proceeded to polish off a whole bottle as we were waiting for the others in our coats. That's how dedicated I used to be. So how did I go from thinking Christmas with no champagne was boring to Christmas with champagne is just not something I'm interested in? I started by recognizing that drinking on repeat was actually quite boring too. Because I was doing the same thing over and over. It was the same problem over and over again. The hangovers, the getting belligerent, the feeling out of control, the saying I'm not going to do it and then doing it, right? That's boring. I got to the point where that was boring. And I was like, I want something new to focus on. Do I want to experience something new in my life? So I decided I wanted to work on this drinking so I could do those other things that are way more exciting for me than carrying on down the same old drinking path. And therefore, now I have way more fun. I have way better relationships with all kinds of different people. I've created my own business, right? So it's so much better now I've got this out of the way. If I were doing this business on a different topic, of course, and I was still drinking, I can't imagine how I would ever find the time for that, right? I created my own belief to start with that not drinking is fun. I had to that's where I'm going towards. And I went towards that instead of thinking that not drinking is boring, right? Drinking is boring rather than not drinking is boring. How do I got to that point though? Again, my very first step was drinking again and again is actually really rather boring. So in summary, you don't have to sacrifice a fun, festive season through not drinking at all. But it won't just happen by itself, especially if you have the habit of drinking to create a sense of fun. But that doesn't make it impossible. If you just pick one of the 6 things I've covered today, then you will have a different experience. You will start to move the dial in the direction that you want to go. And if you're listening to this and you're thinking, yeah, that's what I want to be next year, I want to just be able to have a fun, festive season and be confident I can do that without worrying about what's in my glass. Now is the time to secure your spot on my coaching calendar starting in January. As you may imagine, January is a very busy month for me. So if you want to change your relationship with alcohol, if you want to take it or leave it, or maybe if you want to stop drinking completely, now is the time to act. Go to 90dayslater.co and book a call with me there, or you can email me on anna@90dayslater.co. Don't forget about the masterclass that I mentioned at the top of the podcast, 90dayslater.co/holidays. And in the meantime, I just wish you a very Merry Christmas and I will see you next week. If you like what you're learning in the podcast and you want to take the work further and achieve total freedom around alcohol, let's talk. I help my clients stop reaching for that first glass of wine the moment 6 p.m. rolls around and they don't miss out on life. Email me for more information on anna@90dayslater.co. And if you did enjoy the show, I'd really appreciate if you'd leave a rating and review to help others find the 90 Days Later podcast.